This chapter is about the second Tuesday. We talk about feeling sorry for yourself. I came back the next Tuesday, and for many Tuesdays that followed, I looked forward to these visits more than one would think, considering I was flying 700 miles to sit alongside a dying man. But I seemed to slip into a time warp when I visited Morrie, and I liked myself better when I was there. I no longer rented a cell phone for the rides from the airport. Let them wait, I told myself, mimicking Morrie. The newspaper situation in Detroit had not improved. In fact, it had grown increasingly insane, with nasty confrontations between picketeers and replacement workers, people arrested, beaten, lying in the street in front of the delivery trucks. In light of this, my visit with Morrie felt like a cleansing rinse of human kindness. We talked about life and we talked about love. We talked about one of Morrie's favorite subjects, compassion, and why our society had a huge shortage of it. Before my third visit, I stopped at a market called Bread and Circus. I had seen their bags in Morrie's house and figured he must like the food there, and I loaded up with plastic containers from their fresh food takeaway, things like vermicelli with vegetables and carrot soup and baklava. When I entered Morrie's study, I lifted the bags as if I had just robbed a bank. Food, man, I bellowed. Morrie rolled his eyes and smiled. Meanwhile, I looked for signs of his disease progression. His fingers worked well enough to write with a pencil or hold up his glasses, but he could not lift his arms much higher than his chest. He was spending less and less time in the kitchen or living room and more time in his study, where he had a large recliner set up with pillows, blankets, and specially cut pieces of foam rubber that held his feet and gave support to his withering legs. He kept a bell near his side, and when he needed adjusting or if he needed to go to the commode, as he referred to it, he would shake the bell, and Connie, Tony, Bertha, or Amy, his small army of home care workers, would come in. It wasn't always easy for him to lift the bell, and when he got frustrated, he couldn't make it work. I asked Morrie if he felt sorry for himself. Sometimes in the morning, he said, that's when I mourn. I feel around my body, I move my fingers and my hands whenever I can still move, and I mourn what I've lost. I mourn the slow, insidious way in which I'm dying. But when I stop mourning, but then I stop mourning. Just like that. I give myself a good cry if I need it, but then I concentrate on all the good things in life, on the people who are coming to see me, on the stories I'm going to hear, on you if it's Tuesday because we're Tuesday people. I grinned, Tuesday people. Mitch, I don't allow myself any more self pity than that. A little each morning, a few teardrops, and that's all. I thought about all the people I knew who spent many of their waking hours feeling sorry for themselves. How useful it would be to put a daily limit on self pity, just a few tearful minutes, and then on with the day. And if Morrie could do it with such a horrible disease, it's only horrible if you see it that way, Morrie said. It's horrible to watch my body slowly wilt away to nothing. But it's also wonderful because of all the time I get to say goodbye. He smiled. Not everyone's that lucky. I studied him in his chair and unable to stand, to wash, to pull up his own pants. Lucky? Did he really just say lucky? During a break, when Morrie had to use the bathroom, I leafed through the Boston newspaper that sat near his chair. There was a story about a small timber town where two teenage girls were tortured and killed by a 73-year-old man who had befriended them, then threw a party in his trailer and home and showed off the corpse. There was another story about an upcoming trial of a straight man who killed a gay man after the latter had gone on a TV talk show and said he had a crush on him. I put the paper away. Morrie was rolled back in, smiling as always, and Connie went to lift him from the wheelchair to the recliner. You want me to do that? I asked. There was a momentary silence, and I'm not even sure why I offered, but Morrie looked at Connie and said, can you show him how to do it? Sure, Connie said. Following her instructions, I leaned over, locked my forearm under Morrie's armpits, and hooked him toward me, as if lifting a large log from underneath. Then I straightened up, hoisting him as I rose. Normally, when you lift someone up, you expect their arms to tighten around your grip, but Morrie could not do this. He was mostly dead weight, and I felt his head bounce softly on my shoulder and his body sag against me like a big damp loaf. Ah, he softly groaned. I got you, I said. Holding him like that moved me in a way that I cannot describe, except to say that I felt the seeds of death inside his shivering frame, and as I laid him in his chair, adjusting his head on his pillow, I had the coldest realization about our time and how it was running out, and I had to do something. Now it's a flashback. It's my junior year in 1978 when disco and Rocky movies were the cultural rage. We were in an unusual sociology class at Brandeis, something Morrie calls group process. Each week, we study the ways in which students in the group interact with one another, how they respond to anger, jealousy, attention. We are human lab rats. Most often than not, someone ends up crying. I refer to it as the touchy feely course. Morrie says I should be more open minded. On this day, Morrie says he has an exercise for us to try, and we are to stand facing away from our classmates and fall backward, relying on the other student to catch us. Most of us are uncomfortable with this, and we cannot let go for more than a few inches before stopping ourselves. We laugh in embarrassment. Finally, one student, a thin, quiet, dark haired girl whom I noticed almost always wears bulky white fisherman sweaters, crosses her arms on her chest and closes her eyes, leans back, and does not flinch, like one of those Lipton tea commercials where the model splashes into a pool. For a moment, I'm sure she's going to thump on the floor, and at the last instant, her assigned partner grabs her head and shoulders and yanks her up harshly. Whoa! Several students yell. Some clap. Morrie finally smiles. You see, he says to the girl, you closed your eyes. That was the difference. Sometimes you cannot believe what you see. You have to believe what you feel. And if you're ever going to have other people trust you, you must know what it feels. You must feel that you can trust them too, even when you're in the dark and even when you're falling.